All right, let's try this again. For those of you that were going to be on the 11 a.m., um, it didn't happen. It happened for me, so I think I did an excellent job this morning. But good, bad, or indifferent, software issues. So now we're going to go ahead and get started. My hope is that actually there are people out there that can see this now. I know there's going to be a little bit of a delay, and hopefully that in the comment sections we can try and figure this out. This is what happens when you don't go live for, gosh, I looked at the last time, it was summer of 2024. And my goal here is to go live once a week, every Friday at 11 a.m. Now that we've got the software issues fixed, I hope. Just a couple quick housekeeping items. QR code in the top corner of your screen is my newsletter, where you'll get a lot of content. And if you like some of the things we're going to talk about today, you're going to love the newsletter. Additionally, if you wait to the end, there's going to be 2 bonuses that I'm going to provide for you guys. And I hope that this actually works this time and we can get rolling. So as I go ahead and pull up my slide here, today, the conversation that we're going to talk about really drives in what we talk about is stop hiring for skills and firing behaviors. And why is that important? I say that 3 or 4 times a week to individuals and clients that I work with, because oftentimes that's what happens. We're hiring based on resume, based on 2 or 3 key skills. And ultimately, what happens is we have to let them go because they don't fit, because of behaviors, because of their attitude, because of things that are not working in the workplace. So when we look at hiring people, or once we have them employed, we've already hired them, what are the things that matter most? Most often, it's behaviors. Because skills, in most cases, as long as we get someone that is in the right area, skills are things that we can develop, things that we can teach. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. All right. So one of the things that I'm going to show you is, you see on your screen, it's a leader lens, which is what we call a framework, a process that we put individuals through that we work with. And Leader Lens is essentially this. It is a leader roadmap. It's going to help you identify more information about your people, if you do this for yourself or about yourself, than you've ever been able to get to. And I'm going to show you how we do that through the system. And it's one of the things that I am strongly excited about. I've been testing this for all year, but I've been putting it together for a couple of years. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. Marshall Goldsmith, he posted this. He had a post this week, and this was the picture. And it says, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers. So think of the axe as the leader and the tree as the employees or the people around you. The axe's job is to chop down trees, right? And it continues to go tree after tree after tree. Well, the tree only knows what happens to it. So if you think of the leader as the axe, oftentimes leaders are just going through people, not paying a bit of attention to how they're showing up to individuals. And so, I really do appreciate this. I guess this is a metaphor, but the reason why that we do this and the things that I am sharing with you today is that executive presence is dead. Now, let me take you a step back here. I was having a conversation with my marketing partner, Meg, and I said, look, I'm trying to get my clients to understand how serious self-awareness really is. And what I mean by that is self-awareness, first and foremost, everybody thinks that they're self-aware. Nobody raises their hand to say, hey, I'm not self-aware, okay? And good, bad, or indifferent, that's just the way we are. What most people don't understand is, from a sales perspective, I was like, how do I get people's attention regarding self-awareness and the challenges with self-awareness when in reality, everybody thinks they're self-aware. So no one's going to think that they need this. And so Meg said, Clegg, what about that being the new executive presence? And so when you think about the world that I grew up in, like I can remember people that, first couple of days of work that I'm like, man, I want to be like that guy. Man, I want to drive that car that she has. Executive presence was more about being sharp, how you dressed, being well spoken, having some charisma, being confident. Well, that's dead. While some of those things are still important, the reality is how we need to measure people isn't about executive presence. Executive presence now, under our new definition, is how are people showing up? And so over 20 years of leadership development, there are two things that I will plant my flag on this hill that are most important, and that's self-awareness and psychological safety. And the reason for that is first and foremost, you have to have self-awareness. And self-awareness, most people believe, is what they think about themselves. But in reality, it's the impact that we show other people or that we have on other people. Psychological safety is, are we in an environment where I can speak up? Are we in an environment where I can share losses without being criticized or being made fun of? Is it safe for me to take a risk? That's where psychological safety comes in. And overwhelmingly, there's a lot of organizations that do not have psychological safety. So some of what we're going to talk about today really dives into the emotional intelligence aspect, and more particularly two of them, which is self-awareness and self-regulation. I don't go into depth with the other three that make up emotional intelligence, or as we also know, it's called EQ, but I spend a ton of time with self-awareness, and I'm going to show you why. And let me move my face out of the way here. 95% of people believe that they have high self-awareness, and it never fails. When I go speak, regardless of the size of the audience, I say, hey, by a show of hands, who believes that they're self-aware? And inevitably, what happens is, I think that's thumbs up from Anna, thank you. Inevitably, what happens is just what I said earlier. Most people believe that they're self-aware. And I'll usually get one or two people that'll go, yeah, kind of. Well, the data overwhelmingly shows that self-awareness, actually only 10 to 15% really have it. And then you go, well, how is that possible? This is real data. Dr. Tasha Eurich did a study with a couple thousand leaders. And the reason for that is one big, and this is something that I see every day when I'm visiting with clients, and that is there are two types of self-awareness. And I was just talking about this over lunch in one of my mastermind groups. There's internal and external. First off, most of us think that we're self-aware because of the internal self-awareness, which really is about introspection and reflection. It's how we show up ourselves. The part that people miss that I see is the external self-awareness, because the only way that we can get access to our own external self-awareness is through other people. We have to get the information from them. We can't gather this information ourselves. We have to ask questions. We have to ask for feedback. I do this a lot when I speak. I go, hey, how am I doing? Like right in the middle of my talk. And inevitably somebody gets put on the spot and they go, oh, you're great. Because naturally, most people are going to say the good things, not the bad things, right? They don't want to be put on the spot to be judged. I don't want to judge you. But in reality, what we look at this is external self-awareness is that impact that we have on other people. And in this like little cartoon, the perception of you, your reputation shows up in the room well before you actually walk in it. So the only way that we get this and understand this is through gaining questions, getting insight from other people. Now, how do I do this in the workplace? I have worked with PDP for the better part of about 8 years. And in the corporate world, when I was executive, I've used Predictive Index, Cultural Index, DISC, Wonderlic, Myers-Briggs, Enneagrams, you name it, I have used it. I have stuck with PDP for 8 years. And the reason that I have stuck with PDP for 8 years is because, one, it's so extremely accurate. Now, if you look at the lower right-hand side of your slide, there's a QR code. If you click that, if you feel like geeking out, you can geek out on the science behind that. Now, the other part of this is within PDP, there are two things that we can do. We can look at the individual pro scan, which is based on individuals, and two, the team scan. And the team scan is essentially, it's PDPs for a bunch of people. Now, before I keep going, I'm going to test and see if this actually shows up in the chat. Let's see. All right. Worked for me. So I'm going to keep going here. So a pro scan is the individual. And I'm going to show you what a pro scan looks like. So as we look at this, there are three areas that we do pay close attention to. We look at the blue, the basic natural self. We look at the red, which is the priority environment. And we look at green, which is the outward self, or how others see us. Now, when I work with clients, I spend 90% of my time on the blue, the basic natural self. The red version, I spend, 5-10% of the time, unless there are some things that really stand out, and that is your priority or stress environment. This is how you respond when you're under pressure. And I don't spend a ton on the green. That comes later in the process. But essentially what this does is it provides predictive behaviors. And when I look at, this is called an intensity chart. When I look at the intensity chart, the circles with the letters is essentially where I landed on the chart. And the blue shaded areas are words that are used to describe me. And this is actually my real PDP. So as we look through this, there are four primary areas that we actually look at. We look for behaviors, which there's four of them: dominance, extroversion, pace, and conformity. And I'm not going to go into depth on these. I'm going to just show you how PDP works. Then we look at logic. And let me take a step back here first. The reason that why I have used PDP for 8 years is because of its accuracy, and most of the surveys or assessments, if you will, have behaviors as one, right? They some sort of that. But where most of them don't are the next three items: logic, how you make decisions. This is important because if you look, it shows me to be intuitive. If you look above the midline, which is this line that goes across the chart, above the midline means that you're factual or you're analytical. Below is intuitive, which is where I am. And by the way, intuition isn't some sixth sense. It really truly is just it's knowledge made up of experience, of what you've learned in education, books you've read, it takes all of your knowledge into account. Now, the difference when it comes to making decisions is being intuitive. It means that I don't necessarily need facts to make a decision. I can make a decision without facts. It doesn't mean that I don't like facts. It just means that I don't have to have them. For individuals that are factual or analytical, I drive those people crazy. So you can see where it's important in the workplace to identify who is factual and who is more intuitive, because those that are factual need data. So if I'm working with a client and I know that they are more factual, and I learn those through a series of questions, especially on the front end of the sales process, when I learn this, like, I have to identify how I'm going to work with them. If they're highly factual, I need to bury them with facts. If they're highly intuitive and I bury them with facts, I'm never going to make the sale, right? So we have to understand the difference. So that's why it's important to understand the decision makers from a sales perspective, but especially internally with your employees, because if we're theoretical by nature and our team is more factual based, it's going to be tough to get the message across to them because they're going to want proof. They're going to want to see data. The next thing that we look at is energy style. I like to call this working style. And there's three types of working styles, and I'm not going to go into depth on all three. I'll just give you a brief version of there's thrust, allegiance, and tenacity. Tenacity is just a made up word. It stands for steadfast and tenacious. Now, what those folks that have high tenacity, it means that they have high energy and they like to complete things. High allegiance are individuals that don't necessarily have that high starting power. They're not super locked in on the new project. They don't get excited like I do as a high thrust, but they absolutely have to finish a project. So if I put somebody on a project that's high allegiance and then in a few days remove them to put them on a more important project, that's going to bother them. In fact, they're going to have like this, like it's going to be like that hanging thread that you can't pull all day. It's really going to bother them and it's going to cause them stress. So you can see where it's important to understand who our high allegiance people are. And then there's me, the high thrust, and it's extremely high. And I'll tell you what a high thrust is. We need guardrails, but I'll give you a story. This time last year, it was the last day of the holiday, before the holidays, and I was about to head home, and I text my wife and I said, "Hey, babe, about to come home. Is there anything you want me to grab?" And she calls me, which she typically doesn't call. So I was like, I better answer this. She calls and says, "Hey, Clegg, I think you need to stop by and get one of those kits. The bathroom toilet is continually running." And I said, "All right, got it. I'll stop by Lowe's. I'll grab a kit. I'll come home and I'll fix it tonight." Her immediate response to me was, "Do I need to be prepared to be without a toilet over the holidays, or are you actually going to fix it tonight?" You see, those of us that are high thrust, we like to start things but not finish things. So unless I have a deadline, guardrails, structure put around me, I'm going to be all over the place. I'm a visionary by nature. So if that sounds like you're likely high thrust, and you can see where it would be extremely beneficial to understand who these high thrust people are. Now, the last one that we look at is kinetic energy. I look at this as the inner horsepower or battery, so to speak. This is really about your capacity. So it shows that I'm a high zone 6. Now, when I go speak or do workshops, I don't show the entire team everybody's zone, because naturally people that are 5, 6s, and 7s think that 2s and 3s aren't as good as them. And that's not the case at all. In fact, it's just the capacity is different. Those that are zone 2 or 3 may choose to do 1 or 2 things at a time, whereas those that are 5, 6s, and 7s typically will say, "Hey, give me more. I want more," right? Those that are higher likely won't burn out. They will experience bore out if they're not challenged. But those that are lower want to do 1 or 2 things at a time. They could experience burnout because they're getting overloaded with the things that are going on, with what's piling up. Now, your lower capacity people choose to do 1 or 2 things at a time and then move on. So that essentially is the PDP Pro Scan. It is the most accurate thing I have ever worked with. And like I said, just as a recap for those who just joined, if you actually look at the QR code at the bottom of the screen, if you want to geek out on some of the science, you'll see how accurate this really is. Now, the last part of the Leader Lens, this is actually the Leader Lens document itself. Now, the Leader Lens document itself is takes the PDP and summarizes it, takes the data from it, and essentially, and by the way, this is a fictitious person, and then it identifies some of the key leadership gaps. Now, you don't have to be a leader to have these gaps, right? So, and these gaps are going to be more general in terms, because it's not going to pinpoint exactly, but it gets you in the neighborhood, in the ballpark, to start having conversations. But the reason why the Leader Lens is tremendously helpful is it provides you with a SWOT analysis. And this personal SWOT analysis is going to give you the answers to the test. It's going to give you more awareness than you've ever had. And if you're a leader, it's going to give you a tremendous amount of awareness for your teams. So as you look through this, it's going to give you your strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats, because that's what a SWOT analysis is. And on top of that, then we roll in a 90-day coaching blueprint. Essentially, this is a roadmap for what good looks like. Now, we're going to go a step further. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to take my face off here. If you look at the bottom of the screen, it's got 3 of your lowest graded behaviors out of the competency of 10 core competencies. and you're going to score yourself. But in addition to scoring yourself, your boss is going to score you, and potentially if you're working with a trainer or a coach, they would score you as well. And then that's tracked over a year. So you see the improvement that you're getting. Now, the thing that I think is important to understand with this is it is a layer deeper than even the PDP provides, because it's going to give you and your leader a roadmap for you to course correct. It gives you the ideas, and it gives you the points of reference that essentially the PDP is going to tell you where you are. And so the leader lens is like this culmination of all of these things. The cool thing about the leader lens is you can do this for groups of people and create a team lens. So then you can find the gaps of the individuals on your team. So, let's say you're lacking conformity. You really need some structure in your group. You got a lot of high energy type A people that are very intuitive like me, but nobody that is a rules follower or structure process person. When you have those individuals or missing those individuals, you can now identify where the gaps are on your teams, and you can start hiring for that. You can use PDP and create a job model to do that, which that'll be another week that we'll talk about this. And as a reminder, my plan is to go live every Friday at 11 a.m. It didn't work this morning. That's why I'm doing this late. So I will send this to all of you that registered this morning. I apologize for that, but we're going to make it. Next week will be even better. So, but when you look at the leader lens, it's going to not only score your 3 lower areas, but it's going to give you direction to start moving forward. So the last thing that I'm going to say today, and I will still hold this true, and I will put this out to you guys. For those of you that either were here live, and I know some people have come in and out, and that's totally fine. I'm glad it's at least working now, but there's going to be 2 offers here. First, I'm going to give 50% off for up to 2 people. So if you're a leader and you say, Clegg, I want to leader lens 20 people, I can't do that for 20 people, but for 2 people in your team, I will give 50% off a leader lens. You just need to DM me. I'm going to put I'll put my Calendly up here so that if you want to schedule time with me to talk about this or anything that you've heard or learned today, that's fine. I will extend it because I blew the live this morning. I will extend it 48 hours. So by close of business Saturday, I'll give you guys a chance to do that. The second thing that I'm offering is for my leadership cohort. Now I'll move this out of the way now. So for the cohort, there we go. For the cohort, I've got some QR codes here. What this is going to do is the one on the left is going to be information about the cohort, the things you can expect, the things that you can learn. The second is actually if you want to sign up. Now, for those that join, the first 5 sponsors, if you're going to put someone in your team, the first 5 people that sign up for my cohort, that's going to start in March. When you do that, I'm going to give you 2 additional leader lens for the folks on your team. Because I think it's beneficial if everyone on your team is speaking the same language. And that's the great thing about leader lens is it's going to give you that new language that you have. So the QR codes will help you out. It'll give you all the data and all the information. I do apologize again for anyone that came in this morning, wasn't here, had like 20 text messages from people who are going, hey, dude, are you alive? So sorry about that. But every Friday at 11 a.m., now that I've got everything with the software figured out, I'm going to be here live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and hopefully YouTube. I'm not sure if it's working on YouTube or not, but I really look forward to this. I wanted to redo this to make sure we got everything right, and we'll get this sent out. So we'll talk to everybody soon. Have a great weekend. If you're in the Charlotte area, get ready for the snowstorm. Talk soon.